The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
Torah V'Dat is a school right here in Brooklyn. Okay? This year, the 8th grade class. And the 8th grade class has a teacher. His name is Mr. Berger. Mr. Berger's been the teacher in the school. English secular teacher. He teaches all the secular subjects. Math, science, social studies, whatever. He teaches it for many years. This is his 26th year teaching in Torah V'Dat. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The last few years he's been just teaching 8th grade. And in order to teach the class, you have to have somewhat of a relation with the class. And he had a relation with the boys. And the boys would always talk to him about what they're excited about. The 8th graders, they're excited about their tefillin. Mr. Berger is a completely secularized, unaffiliated Jew. And for years, the boys were like, Mr. Berger, you put on tefillin. He says, I just ignored it every time. One day this year, one of the kids in the class made a deal with Mr. Berger. He says his name was Yaakov Yehuda Kramer, is the kid's name, 8th grade boy. This Yaakov Yehuda Kramer made a deal. He says, if I get 100 on my social studies test, what will you do for me? Mr. Berger said, if you get 100 on social studies test, I will put on tefillin for the entire year. The next morning, the Gemara Rebbe comes into class, and he sees all these boys, diligent boys, and one kid has a social studies book open. So he says, what are you doing? In the middle of Gemara class? I mean, this is not the time. What are you doing? He says, I need to get 100 on this test. The entire day, throughout Gemara, through recess, through lunch, the entire day, this Yaakov Yehuda Kramer, little kid, studied social studies like his life depended on it. He says, I have a chance to inspire a Jew. That afternoon, Mr. Berger comes in, he gives out the test. The boy takes the test. And actually, Mr. Berger was in the next door room proctoring a different test. The boy goes to Mr. Berger, and says, here's my test. The whole class is crowding around to watch him. And he starts grading the test. The kid got 100. Mr. Berger says, a deal is a deal. Tomorrow, and for the rest of the year, I'm going to put on tefillin. That night he goes home, he says, I have an old pair, I don't even know if it's kosher. He calls the principal of the school. He says, do you have a pair of tefillin I can wear? He says, you can borrow my tefillin tomorrow. Mr. Berger himself, you see him telling the story. He says, I get to school the next day, and I'm having a hard time even walking up the steps. I get up the steps, and I see the whole school in the hallway. And they're all cheering, and the principal gives him the tefillin, and for the first time in his life, he puts on tefillin. And he does it every day, until a few days later, one of the fathers of one of the boys in the class calls up and he says, I'm going to buy you a pair of tefillin. And he buys the man a pair of tefillin. He says, I've been wearing tefillin now every day since. A few weeks in, one of the boys told me, says, you know what the power is of wearing tzitzit? He says, so I started wearing tzitzit. So now every day, at their Torah V'Das dinner, they had a Kiddush Hashem award. They gave the Kiddush Hashem award to the entire 8th grade class. This Mr. Berger, a few weeks in, was so excited, called the principal back. He says, I want to give back. He made a pizza party for the whole 8th grade boys, and they celebrated and they danced, just the fact that he's wearing tefillin. And he got up at the dinner, and he got an award, and the school gave him a package, a full Shabbat essentials package, how to bring Shabbat into your home. Whatever it is, a chali plate, kiddush cup, havdalah, all that stuff. And he got up and he says, I've been here for 25 years. I'll never forget this 26th year, this class, because it changed my life. And he says, and I hope, you're 26 in the name of Hashem. He says, I hope that this is going to continue, and even after 8th grade ends, I'm going to go further and further with my love for the religion. Our religion is fantastic. When someone isn't willing to put in the toil, you feel bad for them. Because they're never going to taste it. They're never going to taste what it's like to have joy that nothing else can match it. So yes, I know it's difficult the first 5 minutes, like the Chazon Ish says, or maybe the first hour, or maybe the first week or month, or maybe even the first year. But once you dive in, once you're willing to do the toil, woman or man, once you're willing to do the toil, there's a sweetness that happens.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org